Synopsis of the Bhagavad Gita. Swami Ashokravat. Surrey, BC, Canada. Preface. In order to understand the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of the Divine, it is necessary to go into its background. Gita is a part of a bigger book called the Mahabharata. As the story goes, there was a kingdom of Hastinapur, ruled by King Pandu, who had 5 children, collectively known as the Pandavas. Pandu, being of a religious temperament, decided to abdicate his throne and become a hermit. His children were then too young to take up the responsibilities of the kingdom. It was then decided by the noblemen of the kingdom to temporarily hand over the kingdom to his brother, Dhritarashtra, until his children were old enough to take over the reign. Dhritarashtra had 100 children who were collectively known as the Kaurav. When after some time, the Pandavas grew up and demanded their kingdom, the Kauravas refused to hand it back to them. There ensued a war between them. Just before the war was to start, Arjun, who was one of the main warrior on the side of the Pandavas, asked his charioteer, Sri Krishna, to take his chariot between the two armies so that he can assess the warriors on his side and those against whom he is to fight. Sri Krishna complied. In the middle of the two armies, Arjun saw his close kinsmen on either side. Seeing them, Arjun became very sad and said that he can't kill such close relatives, so shall not fight. Sri Krishna, on seeing Arjun's predicament, advised him on how he should conduct himself in the situation. The advice given by Sri Krishna to Arjun on the battlefield is the Bhagavad Gita. It's the advice that many people since have followed to get themselves out of conflicting situations in life. Many people get overwhelmed by the number of characters in the Mahabharata. In Gita, you have to mainly contend with only 2, Sri Krishna and Arjun. There are 2 other characters, Dhritarashtra and Sanjay. Dhritarashtra is the ruling king and father of the Kauravas. Sanjay happens to be his aide. Sanjay was blessed with the power to see and hear sounds from faraway places. Just when the war was to start, Dhritarashtra, the king, who is comfortably seated in his palace, asks his aide Sanjay to tell him what was going on in the battleground. The narration given by Sanjay to King Dhritarashtra forms the basis of the Gita. Chapter 1. Dhritarashtra, father of Kauravas, said, Sanjay, gathered on the holy land of Kurukshetra, eager to fight, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do? Sanjay said, now, O Lord of the earth, seeing your sons arrayed against him. And when missiles were ready to be hurled, Arjun, who had the figure of Hanuman on the flag of his chariot, took up his bow and then addressed the following words to Krishna, place my chariot between the 2 armies, and keep it there till I have carefully observed these warriors drawn up for battle, and have seen with whom I have to engage in this fight. I shall scan the well-wishers of evil-minded Duryodhana, in this war. Whoever have assembled on his side and are ready for the fight. Sri Krishna placed the magnificent chariot between the 2 armies in front of Bhisma, Drona, and all the kings, and said, Arjun, behold these Kauravas assembled here. Now Arjun saw stationed there in both the armies his uncles, granduncles, and teachers, even great-granduncles, maternal uncles, brothers, and cousins, sons and nephews, and grandnephews, even so friends, fathers-in-law and well-wishers as well. Seeing all the relations present there, Arjun was overcome with deep compassion and spoke thus in sorrow. Arjun said, Krishna, as I see these kinsmen arrayed for battle, my limbs give way, and my mouth is getting parched, nay, a shiver runs through my body, and hair stands on end. Sanjay said, Arjun, whose mind was agitated by grief on the battlefield, having spoken thus, and having cast aside his bow and arrows, sank into the hinder part of his chariot and said, I will not fight. Chapter 2. Sanjay said, Sri Krishna then addressed the following words to Arjun, who was overwhelmed with pity, whose eyes were filled with tears and agitated, and who was full of sorrow. Arjun, you grieve over those who should not be grieved for, and yet speak like the learned, wise men do not sorrow over the dead or the living. O son of Kunti, the contacts between the senses and their objects, which give rise to the feelings of heat and cold, pleasure and pain, etc., are transitory and fleeting, therefore endure them. The wise man to whom pain and pleasure are alike, and who is not tormented by these contacts, becomes eligible for immortality. Both of them are ignorant, he who considers the soul to be capable of killing and he who takes it as killed, for verily the soul neither kills, nor is killed. The soul is never born, nor it ever dies, nor does it become only after being born. For it is unborn, eternal, everlasting, and primeval. Even though the body is slain, the soul is not. Weapons cannot cut it, nor can fire burn it, water cannot wet it, nor can wind dry it. This soul dwelling in the bodies of all, can never be slain, therefore, you should not mourn for anyone. Treating alike victory and defeat, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, get ready for the battle, fighting thus you will not incur sin. Those who are full of worldly desires and devoted to the letter of the Vedas, who look upon heaven as the supreme goal and argue that there is nothing beyond heaven, are unwise. They utter flowery speech recommending many rituals of various kinds for the attainment of pleasure and power with rebirth as their fruit. Those whose minds are carried away by such words, and who are deeply attached to pleasures and worldly power, cannot attain the determinate intellect concentrated on God. Your right is to work only and never to the fruit thereof. Do not be the cause of the fruit of action, nor let your attachment be to inaction. Perform your duties established in yoga, renouncing attachment, and be even-minded. In success and failure, one with evenness of mind is called a yogi. Action with a selfish motive is far inferior to this yoga in the form of equanimity. Do seek refuge in this equipoise of mind, for poor and wretched are those who crave fruit of action. Wise men possessing equipoise mind, renouncing the fruit of actions and freed from the shackles of birth and death, attain the blissful supreme state. When your intellect, confused by hearing conflicting statements, will rest steady and undistracted in meditation on God, you will then attain yoga, everlasting union with God. When one thoroughly casts off all cravings of the mind, and is satisfied in the self through the joy of the self, he is then called stable of mind. The sage, whose mind remains unperturbed amid sorrows, whose thirst for pleasures has altogether disappeared, and who is free from passion, fear and anger, is called stable of mind. He who is unattached to everything, and meeting with good and evil, neither rejoices nor recoils, his mind is stable. When, like a tortoise that draws in its limbs from all directions, he withdraws all his senses from the sense objects, his mind becomes steady. Turbulent by nature, the senses, not free from attachment, even of a wise man, who is practicing self-control, forcibly carry away his mind. The man dwelling on sense objects develops attachment for them. From attachment springs up desire, and from the desire unfulfilled ensues anger. From anger arises delusion, from delusion, confusion of memory, from confusion of memory, loss of reason, and from loss of reason one goes to complete ruin. He who has not controlled his mind and senses can have no determinate intellect, nor contemplation. Without contemplation, he can have no peace, and how can there be happiness for one lacking peace of mind? As the wind carries away a boat upon the waters, even so of the senses. Moving among sense objects, the one to which the mind is attached, takes away his discrimination. He, whose senses are completely restrained from their objects, is said to have a stable mind. As the waters of different rivers enter the ocean, which, though full on all sides, remains undisturbed, likewise, he, in whom all enjoyments merge themselves without causing disturbance, attains peace, not he who hankers after such enjoyments. He who has given up all desires, and moves free from attachment, egoism, and thirst for enjoyment, attains peace. Chapter 3. Sri Krishna said, none can ever remain inactive even for a moment, for everyone is helplessly driven to action by modes of prakriti, nature. He who outwardly restraining the organs of sense and action, sits mentally dwelling on the objects of senses, that man of deluded intellect is called a hypocrite. On the other hand, he who controlling the organs of sense and action by the power of his will, and remaining unattached, undertakes the yoga of selfless action through those organs, he excels. Go on efficiently doing your duty at all times without attachment. Doing work without attachment, man attains the supreme. All actions are being performed by the modes of prakriti, primordial matter. The fool, whose mind is deluded by egoism, thinks himself to be the doer. As fire is covered by smoke, mirror by dust, and embryo by the amnion, so is knowledge covered by desire. Knowledge stands covered by this eternal enemy of the wise known as desire. which is insatiable like fire. Knowing the self which is higher than the intellect and subduing the mind by reason, kill this enemy in the form of desire that is hard to overcome. Chapter 4. Whenever righteousness is on the decline, unrighteousness is in the ascendant, it's then I body myself forth. For the protection of the virtuous, for the extirpation of evildoers, and for establishing dharma, righteousness, on a firm footing, I manifest myself. From age to age. He, who, having totally given up attachment to actions and their fruit, no longer depends on anything in the world, and is ever content, does nothing at all, though fully engaged in action. Having subdued his mind and body, and giving up all objects of enjoyment, and free from craving, he who performs sheer bodily action, does not incur sin. The karma yogi, who is contented with whatever is got unsought, is free from jealousy and has transcended all pairs of opposites like joy and grief, and is balanced in success and failure, is not bound by his action. Even if you were the most sinful of all sinners, this knowledge alone would carry you, like a raft, across all your sins. Chapter 5. He, who acts offering all actions to God, and shaking off attachment, remains untouched by sin, as the lotus leaf by water. Offering the fruit of actions to God, the karma yogi attains everlasting peace in the shape of God realization, whereas, he who works with a selfish motive, being attached to the fruit of actions through desire, gets tied down. The wise look with equanimity on all, whether it be a Brahmin endowed with learning and culture, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a pariah, too. He who, with firm intellect and free from doubt, rejoices not on obtaining what is pleasant and does not feel perturbed on meeting with the unpleasant. That knower of Brahma, God, lives eternally in identity with Brahma. The pleasures which are born of sense contacts are verily a source of suffering only, though appearing as enjoyable to worldly-minded people. They have a beginning and an end, they come and go, it is for this reason that a wise man does not indulge in them. He alone, who is able to withstand, in this very life before casting off this body, the urges of lust and anger, is a yogi, and he alone is a happy man. Shutting out all thoughts of external enjoyments, with the gaze fixed on the space between the eyebrows, having regulated the prana, outgoing, and the apana, incoming, breaths flowing within the nostrils, he who has brought his senses, mind, and intellect under control, such a contemplative soul intent on liberation and free from desire, fear and anger, is ever liberated. Chapter 6. When a man ceases to have any attachment for the objects of senses and for actions, and has renounced all sankalps, thoughts of the world, he is said to have attained yoga. One's own self is the friend of the soul by whom the lower self, consisting of the mind, senses, and body, has been conquered. Even so, the very self of him, who has not conquered his lower self, behaves antagonistically like an enemy. The Supreme Spirit is rooted in the knowledge of the self-controlled man, whose mind is perfectly serene in the midst of pairs of opposites, such as cold and heat, joy and sorrow, and honor and ignominy. He who looks upon well-wishers and neutrals as well as mediators, friends and foes, relatives and inimical, the virtuous and the sinful with equanimity, stands supreme, holding the trunk, head, and neck straight and steady, remaining firm and fixing the gaze on the tip of his nose, without looking in other directions. Firm in the vow of complete chastity and fearless, keeping perfectly calm and with the mind held in restraint and fixed on me, the vigilant yogi should sit absorbed in me. Thus, constantly applying his mind to me, the yogi of disciplined mind attains everlasting peace. Yoga, which rids one of woe, is accomplished only by him who is regulated in diet and recreation, regulated in performing actions, and regulated in sleep and wakefulness. When the mind is thoroughly disciplined, gets riveted on God alone, then the person who is free from yearning for all enjoyments is said to be established in yoga. For, to the yogi whose mind is perfectly serene, who is sinless, whose passion is subdued, and who is identified with Brahma, the embodiment of truth, knowledge, and bliss, supreme happiness comes as a matter of course. Chapter 7. Sri Bhagavan said, hardly one among thousands of men strives to realize me. Of those striving yogis, again, some rare one, devoting him exclusively to me, knows me in reality. Through delusion in the shape of pairs of opposites, such as pleasure and pain etc., born of desire and aversion, all living creatures in this world are falling a prey to infatuation. but those men of virtuous deeds, whose sins have come to an end, being freed from delusion in the shape of pairs of opposites born of attraction and repulsion, worship me with a firm resolve in every way. They who, having taken refuge in me, strive for deliverance from old age and death know Brahma, the Absolute, the whole Adhyatma, the totality of jivas, or embodied souls, and the entire field of karma, action, as well as my integral being, comprising Adhibhuta, the field of matter, Adhideva, Brahma, and Adhyajana, the unmanifest divinity dwelling in the heart of all beings as their witness. And they who, possessed of a steadfast mind, know. Thus even at the hour of death, they too know me alone. Chapter 8. Sri Bhagavan said, the Supreme Indestructible is Brahma, one's own self. The individual soul is called Adhyatma, and the discharge of spirits, Visarga, which brings forth the existence of beings, is called karma, action. All perishable objects are Adhibhuta, the shining Purisa, Brahma, is Adhideva, and in this body I, dwelling as the inner witness, am Adhyajana, O Arjun. He, who departs from the body, thinking of me alone even at the time of death, attains my state, there is no doubt about it. Arjun, thinking of whatever entity one leaves the body at the time of death, that and that alone one attains, being ever absorbed in its thought. Therefore, Arjun, think of me at all times and fight with mind and reason. Thus set on me, you will doubtless come to me. Arjun, he who with his mind disciplined through yoga in the form of practice of meditation and thinking of nothing else, is constantly engaged in contemplation of God attains the supremely effulgent divine Purisa, God. Having by the power of yoga firmly held the life breath in the space between the two eyebrows even at the time of death, and then contemplating on God with a steadfast mind, full of devotion, he reaches verily that supreme divine Purisa, God. Having controlled all the senses, and firmly holding the mind in the heart, and then drawing the life breath to the head, and thus remaining steadfast in yogic concentration on God, he who leaves the body and departs uttering the one indestructible Brahma, Om, and dwelling on me in my absolute aspect, reaches the supreme goal. Arjun, whosoever always and constantly thinks of me with undivided mind, to that yogi ever absorbed in me I am easily attainable. Great souls, who have attained the highest perfection, having come to me, are no more subject to rebirth, which is the abode of sorrow, and transient by nature. Chapter 9. Sri Bhagavan said, people having no faith in this dharma, failing to reach me, continue to revolve in the path of the world of birth and death. Arjun, during the final dissolution all beings enter me, the prime cause, and at the beginning of creation, I send them forth again. Wielding my nature I procreate, again and again, according to their respective karmas, all this multitude of beings subject to the influence of their own nature. Those actions, however, do not bind me, unattached as I am to such actions, and standing apart, as it were. Not knowing my supreme nature, fools deride me, the overlord of the entire creation, who has assumed the human form. That is to say, they take me, who have appeared in human form through my yogamaya, power, for deliverance of the world, as an ordinary mortal. Those bewildered persons with vain hopes, futile actions, and fruitless knowledge have embraced a fiendish, demoniacal, and delusive nature. On the other hand, Arjun, great souls who have adopted the divine nature, knowing me as the prime source of all beings and the imperishable, eternal, worship me constantly with complete devotion of mind, constantly chanting my names and glories and striving for my realization, and bowing again and again to me, those devotees of firm resolve, ever united with me through meditation, worship me with single-minded devotion. I am the supreme goal, sustainer, Lord, witness, abode, refuge, well-wisher, seeking no return, having no origin nor end, resting place, storehouse to which all beings return at the time of universal destruction, and the imperishable seed. Those who perform action with some interested motive as laid down in the three Vedas and drink the sap of the soma plant, and have thus been purged of sin, worshipping me through sacrifices, seek access to heaven, attaining Indra's paradise as a result of their virtuous deeds, enjoy the celestial pleasures of gods in heaven. Having enjoyed the extensive heaven world, they return to this world of mortals on the stock of their merits being exhausted. Thus devoted to the Ritual with interested motive, recommended by the three Vedas as the means of attaining heavenly bliss, and seeking worldly enjoyments, they repeatedly come and go, ascend to heaven by virtue of their merits and return to earth when their fruit has been enjoyed. The devotees, however, who loving no one else constantly think of me, and worship me in a disinterested spirit, to those ever united in thought with me, I bring full security and personally attend to their needs. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer as oblation to the sacred fire, whatever you bestow as a gift, whatever you do by way of penance, do that as an offering to me. With your mind thus established in the yoga of renunciation, offering of all actions to me, you will be freed from the bondage of action in the shape of good and evil results. Thus freed from them, you will attain me. Fix your mind on me, be devoted to me, worship me, and make obeisance to me, thus linking yourself with me and entirely depending on me, you shall come to me. Chapter 10. Sri Bhagavan said, neither gods nor the great sages know the secret of my birth, i.e., my appearance in human or other garb out of mere sport, for I am the prime cause in all respects of gods as well as of the great seers. He who knows me in reality is unborn and without beginning, and as the Supreme Lord of the universe, he, undeluded among men, is purged of all sins. I am the source of all creation and everything in the world moves because of me. Knowing thus, the wise, full of devotion, constantly worship me, with their minds fixed on me, and their lives surrendered to me, conversing and enlightening one another about my glories. My devotees ever remain contented and take delight in me. Chapter 11. Sri Bhagavan said, Arjun, behold my manifold, multifarious divine forms of various colors and shapes, in their hundreds and thousands. Arjun, behold as concentrated within this body of mine the entire creation, consisting of both animate and inanimate beings, and whatever else you desire to see. But surely you cannot see me with these human eyes of yours, therefore, I vouchsafe to you the divine eye. With this you behold my divine power of yoga. Sanjay said, my lord. Having spoken thus, Sri Krishna, the supreme master of yoga, forthwith revealed to Arjun his supremely glorious divine form. If there be the effulgence of 1,000 suns bursting forth all at once in the heavens, even that would hardly approach the splendor of the mighty Lord. Then Arjun, full of wonder and with the hair standing on end, reverentially bowed his head to the divine Lord, and with joined palms addressed him thus. O Lord of the universe, I see you endowed with numerous arms, bellies, mouths, and eyes, and having innumerable forms extended on all sides. I see neither your beginning nor middle, nor even your end, manifested as you are in the form of the universe. Lord, seeing this stupendous and dreadful form of yours, possessing numerous mouths and eyes, many arms, thighs, and feet, many bellies and many teeth, the worlds are terror-struck, so am I. Lord, seeing your form reaching the heavens, effulgent multicolored, having its mouth wide open and possessing large flaming eyes, I, with my inmost self frightened, have lost self-control and find no peace. Sri Bhagavan said, Arjun, pleased with you I have shown you, through my power of yoga, this supreme, effulgent, primal and infinite cosmic form, which has never been seen before by anyone other than you. Seeing such a dreadful form of mine as this, do not be perturbed or perplexed. With a fearless and tranquil mind, behold once again the same four-armed form of mine, bearing the conch, discus, mace and lotus. Sri Bhagavan said, this form of mine, with 4 arms, which you have just seen, is exceedingly difficult to behold. Even the gods are always eager to see this form. Arjun, he who performs all his duties for my sake, depends on me, is devoted to me, has no attachment, and is free from malice towards all beings, reaches me and can see me in this form. Chapter 12. Sri Bhagavan said, I consider them to be the best yogi, who endowed with supreme faith, and ever united through meditation with me, worship me with their mind centered on me. Therefore, fix your mind on me, and establish your intellect in me alone. Thereafter you will abide solely in me. There is no doubt about it. If you are unable even to the pursuit of such practice, be intent to work for me, you shall attain perfection, in the shape of my realization, even by performing actions for my sake. If, taking recourse to the yoga of my realization, you are unable even to do this, then, subduing your mind and intellect etc., relinquish the fruit of all actions. He who is not a source of annoyance to his fellow creatures, and who in his turn does not feel vexed with his fellow creatures, and who is free from delight and envy, perturbation and fear, is dear to me. He who wants nothing, who is both internally and externally pure, is wise and impartial and has risen above all distractions, and who renounces the sense of doership in all undertakings, such a devotee of mine is dear to me. He who neither rejoices nor hates, nor grieves, nor desires, and who renounces both good and evil actions and is full of devotion, is dear to me. He who deals equally with friend and foe, and is the same in honor and ignominy, who is alike in heat and cold, pleasure and pain and other contrary experiences, and is free from attachment, he who takes praise and reproach alike, and is given to contemplation and is contented with any means of subsistence available, entertaining no sense of ownership and attachment in respect of his dwelling place and is full of devotion to me, that person is dear to me. Chapter 13. Sri Bhagavan said, the five elements, the ego, the intellect, the unmanifest, primordial matter, the 10 organs of perception and action, the mind, and the 5 objects of sense, sound, touch, color, taste and smell. Also desire, aversion, pleasure, pain, the physical body, consciousness. Firmness, thus is the Kastra, field, with its evolutes, briefly stated. Absence of pride, freedom from hypocrisy, non-violence, forbearance. Uprightness of speech and mind etc., devout service of the preceptor, internal and external purity, steadfastness of mind and control of body, mind, and the senses. Dispassion towards the objects of enjoyment of this world and the next, and also absence of egotism, pondering again and again on the pain and evils inherent in birth, death, old age, and disease. Absence of attachment and the sense of belongingness in respect of son, wife, home etc., and constant equipoise of mind both in favorable and unfavorable circumstances. Unflinching devotion to me through exclusive attachment, living in secluded and holy places, and finding no delight in the company of worldly people. Constancy in self-knowledge and seeing God as the object of true knowledge. All this is declared as knowledge, and what is contrary to this is called ignorance. He alone truly sees, who sees the Supreme Lord as imperishable and abiding equally in all perishable beings, both animate and inanimate. For, by seeing the Supreme Lord equally present in all, he does not kill the self by himself, and thereby attains the supreme state. He who sees that all actions are performed in every way by nature, prakriti, and the self as the non-doer, he alone verily sees. The moment man perceives the diversified existence of beings as rooted in the one Supreme Spirit, and the spreading forth of all beings from the same, that very moment he attains Brahma, who is truth, consciousness, and bliss. Solidified. Arjun, being without beginning and without attributes, this indestructible Supreme Spirit, though dwelling in the body, in fact does nothing, nor gets tainted. Chapter 14. Sri Bhagavan said, Sattva, pious nature, Rajas, pleasure seekers, and Tamas, demoniacal nature, these 3 gunas born of nature tie down the imperishable soul to the body, Arjun. Of these Sattva, being immaculate, is illuminating and flawless, Arjun, it binds through attachment to happiness and knowledge. Arjun, know the quality of Rajas, which is of the nature of passion, as born of desire and attachment. It binds the soul through attachment to actions and their fruit. And know Tamas, the deluder of all those who look upon the body as their own self, as born of ignorance. It binds the soul through error, sloth, and sleep, Arjun. Wisdom follows from Sattva, and greed, undoubtedly, from Rajas, likewise. Obstinate error, stupor, and also ignorance follow from Tamas. He, who is ever established in the self, takes pain and pleasure alike, regards a clod of earth, a stone, and a piece of gold as equal in value, is possessed of wisdom, accepts the pleasant as well as the unpleasant in the same spirit, and views censure and praise alike. He who is equipoise in honor or ignominy, is alike towards a friend or an enemy, and has renounced the sense of doership in all undertakings, is said to have risen above the 3 gunas. He too who constantly worships me through the yoga of exclusive devotion, transcending these 3 gunas, natures, he becomes eligible for attaining Brahma. For, I am the substratum of the imperishable Brahma, of immortality, of the eternal Dharma and of unending immutable bliss. Chapter 15. Sri Bhagavan said, a man should diligently seek for that supreme state, viz., God, having attained which they return no more to this world, and having fully resolved that he stands dedicated to that primeval being, God, himself, from whom the flow of this beginningless creation has progressed, he should dwell and meditate on him. They who are free from pride and delusion, who have conquered the evil of attachment, and are constantly abiding in God, whose cravings have altogether ceased and who are completely immune to all pairs of opposites, going by the names of pleasure and pain, and are undeluded, attain that supreme immortal state. The eternal Jivatma, soul, in this body is a fragment of my own self, and it is that alone which draws around itself the mind and the five senses, which abide in Prakriti, nature. Even as the wind wafts scents from their seat, so, too, the Jivatma, which is the controller of the body etc., taking the mind and the senses from the body, which it leaves behind, forthwith migrates to the body which it acquires. It is while dwelling in the senses of hearing, sight, touch, taste, and smell, as well as in the mind, that this Jivatma, soul, enjoys the objects of senses. Striving yogis too are able to realize this self enshrined in their heart. The ignorant, however, whose heart has not been purified, know not this self in spite of their best endeavors. Since I am wholly beyond the perishable world of matter orchestra, field, and am superior even to the imperishable soul, Jivatma, hence I am known as the Purazatama, highest soul, the supreme self, in the world as well as in the Vedas. Arjun, this most esoteric teaching has thus been imparted by me, grasping it. In essence man becomes wise and his mission in life is accomplished. Chapter 16. Sri Bhagavan said, absolute fearlessness, perfect purity of mind, constant fixity in the yoga of meditation for the sake of self-realization, and even so, charity in its sattvika, pure, form, control of the senses, worship of God and other deities as well as of one's elders including the performance of Agnihotra, pouring oblations into the sacred fire, and other sacred duties, study and teaching of the Vedas and other sacred books as well as the chanting of God's names and glories, suffering hardships for the discharge of one's sacred obligations and uprightness of mind as well as of the body and senses. Nonviolence in thought, word, and deed, truthfulness and geniality of speech, absence of anger even on provocation, disclaiming doership in respect of actions, quietude, or composure of mind, abstaining from slander, compassion towards all creatures, absence of attachment to the objects of senses even during their contact with the senses, mildness, a sense of shame in transgressing the scriptures or social conventions, and abstaining from frivolous pursuits. Sublimity, forbearance, fortitude, external purity, bearing enmity to none and absence of self-esteem, these are the marks of him, who is born with the divine endowments, Arjun. Hypocrisy, arrogance, pride, and anger, sternness and ignorance too, these are the marks of him, who is born with demoniac properties. The divine endowment has been recognized as conducive to liberation, and the demoniac one is leading to bondage. Grieve not, Arjun, for you are born with the divine propensities. There are only two types of men in this world, Arjun, the one possessing a divine nature and the other possessing a demoniac disposition. Of these, the type possessing divine nature has been dealt with at length, now hear in detail from me about the type possessing demoniac disposition. Men possessing a demoniac disposition know not what right activity is and what right abstinence from activity is. Hence they possess neither purity, external or internal, nor good conduct nor even truthfulness. Men of demoniac disposition say this world is without any foundation, absolutely unreal and godless, brought forth by mutual union of the male and female and hence conceived in lust. What else than this? Clinging to this false view, these slow-witted men of vile disposition and terrible deeds are wrongdoers to mankind for the destruction of the world, cherishing insatiable desires and embracing false doctrines through ignorance. These men of impure conduct move in this world, full of hypocrisy, pride, and arrogance, giving themselves up to innumerable cares ending only with death. They remain devoted to the enjoyment of sensuous pleasures and are firm in their belief that this is the highest limit of joy. held in bondage by hundreds of ties of expectation and holy giving. Themselves up to lust and anger, they strive to amass by unfair means hoards of money and other objects for the enjoyment of sensuous pleasures. They say to themselves, this much has been secured by me today and now I shall realize this ambition. So much wealth is already with me and yet again this shall be mine. That enemy has been slain by me and I shall kill those others too. I am the Lord of all, the enjoyer of all power, I am endowed with all occult powers, and am mighty and happy. I am wealthy and own a large family, who else is equal to me? I will sacrifice to gods, will give alms, I will make merry, thus deluded by ignorance, enveloped in the mesh of delusion and addicted to the enjoyment of sensuous pleasures, their minds bewildered by numerous thoughts, these men of devilish disposition fall into the foulest hell. Intoxicated by wealth and honor, those self-conceited and haughty men perform sacrifices only in name for ostentation, without following the sacred rituals. Given over to egotism, brute force, arrogance, lust, and anger etc., and calumniating others, they despise me, the indweller, dwelling in their own bodies as well as in those of others. Those haters, sinful, cruel and vilest among men, I cast again and again into demoniacal wombs in this world. Failing to reach me, Arjun, those stupid souls are born life after life in demoniac wombs and then verily sink down to a still lower plane. Desire, anger, and greed, these triple gates of hell, bring about the downfall of the soul. Therefore, one should shun all these three. Freed from these three gates of hell, man works for his salvation and thereby attains the supreme goal, i.e., God. Discarding the injunctions of the scriptures, he who acts in an arbitrary way according to his own sweet will, such a person neither attains perfection, nor the supreme goal, nor even happiness. Therefore, the scripture alone is your guide in determining what should be done and what should not be done. Knowing this, you ought to perform only such action as is ordained by the scriptures. Chapter 17. Sri Bhagavan said, the faith of all men conforms to their mental disposition, Arjun. Faith constitutes a man, whatever the nature of his faith, verily he is that. Men who practice severe penance of an arbitrary type, not sanctioned by the scriptures, and who are full of hypocrisy and egotism and are obsessed with desire, attachment, and pride of power. Worship of gods, the Brahmans, one's guru, elders, and wise men, purity, straightforwardness, continence and non-violence, these are called penance of the body. Words which cause no annoyance to others and are truthful, agreeable and beneficial, as well as the study of the Vedas and other Shastra, scriptures, and the practice of the chanting of divine name, this is known as penance of speech. Cheerfulness of mind, placidity, habit of contemplation on God, control of the mind and perfect purity of inner feelings, all this is called austerity of the mind. Tat, Sat, this has been declared as the triple appellation of Brahma, who is truth, consciousness, and bliss. By that were the Brahmans and the Vedas as well as sacrifices created at the cosmic dawn. Therefore, acts of sacrifice, charity, and austerity, as enjoined by sacred precepts, are always commenced by noble persons, used to the recitation of Vedic chants, with the invocation of the divine name Om. With the idea that all this belongs to God, who is denoted by the appellation Tat, acts of sacrifice and austerity as well as acts of charity of various kinds, are performed by the seekers of liberation, expecting no return for them. An oblation which is offered, a gift given, an austerity practiced, and whatever good deed is performed, if it is without faith, it is termed as not i.e. asat, untruth, therefore, it is of no avail here or hereafter. Chapter 18. Sri Bhagavan said, some sages understand sannyasa, penance, as the giving up of all actions motivated by desire, and the wise declare that tyaga, sacrifice, consists in relinquishing the fruit of all actions. Some wise men declare that all actions contain a measure of evil, and are, therefore, worth giving up, while others say that acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not to be shunned. Acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance are not worth giving up, they must be performed. For sacrifice, charity, and penance, all these are purifiers to the wise men. Hence these acts of sacrifice, charity, and penance, and all other acts of duty too, must be performed without attachment and expectation of reward. This is My well-considered and supreme verdict, Arjun. Prohibited acts and those that are motivated by desire should no doubt be given up. But it is not advisable to abandon a prescribed duty. A prescribed duty which is performed simply because it has to be performed. Giving up attachment and fruit of action, that alone has been recognized as the sattvika, pure, form of renunciation. He who has neither aversion for action which is leading to bondage nor attachment to that which is conducive to blessedness, imbued with the quality of goodness, he has all his doubts resolved, is intelligent and a man of true renunciation. Since all actions cannot be given up in their entirety by anyone possessing a body, he alone who renounces the fruit of actions is called a man of renunciation. Agreeable, disagreeable, and mixed, threefold, indeed, is the fruit that accrues after death from the actions of the unrenouncing. But there is none whatsoever for those who have renounced. In the branch of learning known as Sankhya, which prescribes means for neutralizing all actions, the 5 factors have been mentioned as contributory to the accomplishment of all actions. Know them all from me, Arjun. The following are the factors operating towards the accomplishment of actions, viz., the body and the doer, the organs of different kinds and the different functions of manifold kinds, and the 5th is deva or prarabdha. Karma, destiny. These 5 are the contributory causes of whatever actions, right or wrong, man performs with the mind, speech, and body. Notwithstanding this, however, he who, having an impure mind, regards the absolute, taintless self alone as the doer, that man of perverse understanding does not view aright. He whose mind is free from the sense of doership, and whose reason is not affected by worldly objects and activities, does not really kill, even having killed all these people, nor does any sin accrue to him. That by which man perceives one imperishable, divine existence as undivided and equally present in all individual beings, know that knowledge to be sattvika, pure. That action which is ordained by the scriptures and is not accompanied by the sense of doership, and has been done without any attachment or aversion by one who seeks no return, is called sattvika, pure. That action however, which involves much strain and is performed by one who seeks enjoyments or by a man full of egotism, has been spoken of as rajasika. That action which is undertaken through sheer ignorance, without regard to consequences or loss to oneself, injury to others and one's own resourcefulness, is declared as tamasika. Free from attachment, unegoistic, endowed with firmness and zeal and unswayed by success and failure, such a doer is said to be sattvika. The doer who is full of attachment, seeks the fruit of actions and is greedy, and who is oppressive by nature and of impure conduct, and is affected by joy and sorrow, has been called rajasika. Lacking piety and self-control, uncultured, arrogant, deceitful, inclined to rob others of their livelihood, slothful, despondent and procrastinating, such a doer is called tamasika. The intellect which correctly determines the paths of activity and renunciation, what ought to be done and what should not be done, what is fear and what is fearlessness, and what is bondage and what is liberation, that intellect is sattvika. The intellect by which a man does not truly perceive what is dharma and what is adharma, what ought to be done and what should not be done, that intellect is rajasika. The intellect which imagines even adharma, irreligious, to be dharma, religious, and sees all other things upside down, wrapped in ignorance, that intellect is tamasika. The unwavering firmness by which man controls through the yoga of meditation the functions of the mind, the vital airs and the senses, that firmness, Arjun, is sattvika. The firmness, however, by which the man seeking reward for his actions clutches with extreme fondness virtues, earthly possessions, and worldly enjoyments, that firmness is said to be rajasika. The firmness by which an evil-minded person does not give up sleep, fear, anxiety, sorrow, and vanity as well, that firmness is tamasika. That joy in which the striver finds enjoyment through practice of adoration, meditation and service to God, and whereby he reaches the end of sorrow. Such a joy, though appearing as poison in the beginning, tastes like nectar in the end, hence that joy, born as it is of the placidity of mind brought about by meditation on God, has been declared as sattvika. The delight which follows from the contact of the senses with their objects is eventually poison-like, though appearing at first as nectar, hence it has been spoken of as rajasika. That which stupefies the self during its enjoyment as well as in the end, derived from sleep, indolence, and obstinate error, such delight has been called tamasika. There is no being on earth, or even among the gods in heaven or anywhere else, who is free from these three gunas, qualities, born of prakriti, nature. Keenly devoted to his own natural duty, man attains the highest perfection in the shape of God realization. By worshipping him from whom all beings come into being and by whom the whole universe is pervaded, through the performance of his own natural duties, man attains the highest perfection. Better is one's own duty, though devoid of merit, than the duty of another. Well performed, for performing the duty ordained by his nature, man does not incur sin. Therefore, Arjun, one should not relinquish one's innate duty, even though it has a measure of evil, for all undertakings are beset by some evil, as is the fire covered by smoke. He whose intellect is unattached everywhere, whose thirst for enjoyment has altogether disappeared and who has subdued his mind, reaches through Sankhya Yoga, the path of knowledge, the consummation of actionlessness. Endowed with a pure intellect and partaking of a light, sattvika, and regulated diet, living in a lonely and undefiled place, having rejected sound and other objects of sense, having controlled the mind, speech, and body by restraining the mind and senses through firmness of a sattvika type, taking a resolute stand on dispassion, after having completely got rid of attraction and aversion and remaining ever devoted to the yoga of meditation, having given up egotism, violence, arrogance, lust, anger, and luxuries, devoid of the feeling of miyam and tranquil of heart, such a man becomes qualified for oneness with Brahma, who is truth, consciousness, and bliss. Established in identity with Brahma, who is truth, consciousness, and bliss. Solidified, and cheerful in mind, the Sankhyayogi no longer grieves nor craves for anything. The same to all beings, such a yogi attains supreme devotion to me. Through that supreme devotion he comes to know me in reality, what and who I am, and thereby knowing me truly, he forthwith merges into my being. The karma yogi, however, who depends on me, attains by my grace the eternal, imperishable state, even though performing all actions. Mentally dedicating all your actions to me, and taking recourse to yoga in the form of even-mindedness, be solely devoted to me and constantly fix your mind on me. With your mind thus devoted to me, you shall, by my grace, overcome all difficulties. But, if from self-conceit you do not care to listen to me, you will be lost. If, taking your stand on egotism, you think you will not fight, vain is this resolve of yours, nature will drive you to the act. That action, too, which you are not willing to undertake through ignorance, you will perforce perform, bound by your own duty born of your nature. God abides in the heart of all creatures, causing them to revolve according to their karma by his elusive power. Take refuge in him alone with all your being, Arjun. By his mere grace you will attain supreme peace and the eternal abode. Give your mind to me, be devoted to me, worship me, and bow to me doing so, you will come to me alone, I truly promise you, for you are exceptionally dear to me. Resigning all your duties to me, the all-powerful and all-supporting Lord. Take refuge in me alone, I shall absolve you of all sins, worry not. Arjun said, Krishna, by your grace my delusion has been destroyed and I have gained wisdom. I am free of all doubt. I shall do your bidding. I am ready to perform my duty, to fight.